That's a tough one. That's a tough one. How do you begin? How do you begin? You know, there's a wonderful play, and the guy describes his braid. He says, I wasn't born, I was come across. In the dusk of one septuagesimal, a priest found an infant about 10 inches long, crammed into a poor box. The money had all been taken. Thinking that I'd eaten the money, the priest turned me upside down and shook me, which encouraged me to live, I suppose, so I lived. Where did I begin? I began in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I was born there. My father was an architect. My mother was a very independent woman who was, when she met my father, was the right hand to the man who was running the second largest hospital in Boston. And she was dating a man named Sikorsky. And she met my father, who was a struggling architect. And they ended up getting married. And so I was raised in a family where I had two very intelligent, smart parents. My father was an architect. My mother was a very driven woman who loved to tell stories, so I used to hear a lot of stories, and took us to a lot of theater and a lot of music, symphony. And we were encouraged to really explore the creative side of ourselves, which I did. My father was, he was an architect, so that's artistic, right, to begin with. He's a designer. And he was also he loved to collect art, so I had a lot of art around me. I had a lot of stuff influencing me. I don't quite remember. I do remember it, I guess. There was an ottoman in the living room, and I'd stand on the ottoman, and my father would put on classical music. I'd stand there and I'd conduct the orchestra. I guess that's the earliest memory I have of that. I think I was always attracted to the arts, always. Although I was I liked sports, and I liked hunting and fishing, and I was exposed to a lot of things as a child. And hindsight is a wonderful thing. And one of the things it confers, which is not a wonderful thing, it confers upon the human mind, is a linear interpretation. And so in that linear interpretation, the tendency is to go, oh yeah, well, there was an A, and there was a C, and there was a G, and there was a W. Well, when it's happening, and you don't know when something's beginning and when something's ending. There was no seminal moment. There was no, oh my God, and the heavens parted, and I went, yes. I think there are choices that are made along the way, when I was in school, I would be, I'd want to be in the plays, and then but I also wanted to play basketball, and then when I was in my junior year, I guess, in high school, I went and got myself a job in a summer stock company, and as a spear carrier and an extra, and work on the sets and that sort of thing. I'm hard put to say, oh yes, there was this, bam.
So we're developing a meditation, and I really started to get in touch with the spirit world, my guides, if you will, and they said to me, if you will work with us, and be a voice piece for the spirit world, and change the consciousness of this planet, if you change the
I think the whole journey of anybody in life, whether it's whatever their career is, whatever they choose to do, it's a journey and a search and a journey of discovery and of learning. I happen to be in the world of storytelling, so my first tools, if you will, were besides reading, were acting. When I did Starsky and Hutch, I reached a point where I went, well, wait a minute, this is not fulfilling enough. I would like to do something more. So I ended up deciding I wanted to direct. I don't know. I guess that, I turned around one day and I was making money at it. Many times I'd hear my father say, well, how much are they paying you? And then when I got into quitting jobs, they say, well, you're walking away from all that pay. Because I kept changing careers. I don't know. You know, my first paying job was I did under fives in soap operas in New York. I was tending bar or waiting on table, and I ended up going on these soap operas and doing what they called under fives. That meant you had under 5 lines. And then the unions showed up, Screen Actors Guild or AFTRA, and wanted to know if I was in the union. I avoided them the first 3 or 4 times I went out the back door, but they finally got me, and so I guess that's, you know, somewhere in there. Someone was paying me to, you know. Well, you know, I think the whole journey of anybody in life, whether it's whatever their career is, whatever they choose to do, it's a journey. It's a journey and a search, and a journey of discovery and of learning. You know, I happen to be in the world of storytelling, so. You know, my first tools, if you will, were, besides reading, were acting. When I did Starsky and Hutch, I reached a point where I went, well, wait a minute, this is not fulfilling enough. I would like to do something more. So I ended up deciding I wanted to direct. And then I ended up deciding, after I directed a bunch of films, I said, okay, I want to write. And then I decided I wanted to write not screenplays, but novels. Your journey, your life unfolds in front of you, and you take choices. You know that Robert Frost poem, Two Roads Diverged in a Wood? And you just keep making choices, and you're trying to make choices that best reflect your own search for who you are. The literal or linear appointment of dates and events are comforting to people in terms of wanting to say, okay, this happened, and this happened, and then this happened there, so that I can, oh, well, mine happened here, and then mine happened over here, and then it didn't happen till there. What I tell actors a lot of the time when I meet them, young actors that are starting out, I say, well, or directors, they say, well, how did you go about it? And what did you do? And what should I do? And a lot of times I find myself saying, you know, the discovery of your journey, of where you're going and how you're getting there, is your journey. It's partial reluctance and it's partial memory. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. I don't spend a lot of time going back there and going, oh, this and that. I really don't. I find staying present is most important for me. And so when people ask questions like that, I go, well, was there a seminal moment? Was there a moment that I could point to? If there was, I can't remember it. Maybe that doesn't make for good material for your show, but that's my reality. I guess I don't function that way. Or that really interested me were like Fellini. I think Fellini had such an amazing connection with his dream life and with his subconscious. That's my interpretation. And to see the way the imagery came out, and it was so rich that anybody could watch it and go, you know, anywhere within it and find things. I like Sergio Leone's storytelling because he had a grandiose, kind of larger-than-life, albeit you know, kind of sardonic look at the Western mythology. There were a lot of really wonderful storytellers. But it's not the story, because we all have, you know, what is that expression, there's only 7 or 12 stories under the sun?
Working in construction. My mom and dad. going up.
Very good. There's always a linear imperative, and that's probably why I would prefer to write a novel than a screenplay, because a screenplay is the old haiku, you know, the 5 pounds of shit, 25 pounds of shit in the 5-pound bag. Can you say shit on your network? The reason I like writing prose is because you can explore wherever it goes. You know, you say, oh, that's interesting. Look what's coming up here, and look what's coming up there. Eventually, you do have to find a discipline. You do have to put a structure on it. You have to give it a beginning, middle, and end. But I prefer to think of beginnings as kind of, you know, it's like once upon a time, that person didn't start, that character didn't start existing at that point. Yeah, we're coming into it. We're coming into a thing that's going on, and while we're going there, we happen to go back and say, oh, that person was, you know, born with one leg. We keep going. I wasn't born with one leg. I wouldn't say stories. I would say the storytelling of the story, because everyone tells their own story. So I never know what story I'm going to tell. I was out once walking my dogs, and I saw a crow with one claw squished up, and I looked at it, and I went, Hookfoot. And I went back and I thought, well, how did he get that name? So I started writing, and I wrote this whole thing about how this character named Hookfoot got his name. The next day I saw one-legged seagull, and I thought Pegleg, and I wrote, you know, and then before I knew it, I wrote a whole book about Hookfoot and Peg. I think the interesting thing to me about storytelling is that it is a reflection. It's like a meditation on now, on where you are now, and what's happening to you now. What questions are you asking yourself now? What issues? What things are you journeying? Are you wrestling with? And how? What characters or what issues come out of that? And what does it create? And like that. I think the storytellers that most interest me, or that really interested me, were like Fellini. I think Fellini had such an amazing connection with his dream life and with his subconscious. That's my interpretation. And to see the way the imagery came out, and it was so rich that anybody could watch it and go, you know, anywhere within it and find things. I like Sergio Leone's storytelling because he had a grandiose kind of larger-than-life, albeit you know, kind of sardonic look at the Western mythology. There were a lot of really wonderful storytellers, but it's not the story, because we all have, you know, what is that expression? There's only 7 or 12 stories under the sun. That's all there are. So there are all these variations, permutations of those stories. The thing that changes, the two variables, are always the storyteller and the listener or reader. Like when you do the theater, when you're performing the theater, the play remains the same, but every night you come there, you're different because you're different, because change is constant, and the audience is different every night. So the constant is changed. The constant isn't the story. You know, you'd interpret a story of Fortune's Lost a lot differently now than you would 5 months ago, wouldn't you? Yeah, you're talking about a haiku on one hand. You're talking about, yes, there is a discipline, there is a form that has to be found, and you want to find an economy of application that maintains the greatest degree of specificity in the execution of that application, in terms of, you can never be specific enough when you're telling a story. You're talking about that, but you're also talking about something that is a fluid medium. Film or tape or digital, whatever, it goes through the gate. It's in motion. And the realization of a film story is fascinating, not only for its size when it's on the big screen, which is the only theatrical medium, right? The small screen is informational at best. Telling of directing, which is probably it's not my favorite thing to do, but it is most all-inclusive and really gets me, you know, because I get so many creative outlets while I'm doing it, is that you're not only telling a story of the script, but you're telling a story of everyone in the company. Because what you see on the screen is just the tip of an iceberg. It's the reflection of a tip of an iceberg. And that's the other thing people don't realize, that when you're watching a movie, you're seeing the experience of people, 80, 240 people, whatever your company is, that is all banded together to focus their attention and the camera and the sound and the music.
We were just getting into
Construction. My mom and dad were
And the realization of a film story is fascinating, not only for its size when it's on the big screen, which is the only theatrical medium, right? The small screen is informational at best. It gives you the information of what a story is, but it doesn't make it larger than life and really give it some kind of spiritual or emotional or heft to really elevate you as a person. The thing that is most fascinating about the realization of these things is the fluidity of it. It's always changing. You may start with a Volkswagen and end up with a Chevrolet. You never know. Even when you have a script in your hand and you go to make a movie, you need to pay attention to the way in which it wants to change as you're doing it. Because it will want to change as you bring people on board, your cinematographer and all your elements, or you bring your actors on board, and you bring your editor on board, you put music onto it, and it all just continues to change. And so the fluidity of it is the value. That's the value, and what you're trying to capture is that. And the people all too often look at film and they go, they see it as a static thing. It's a set of images. It's a set of sounds. It's a box of popcorn. It's a date. It's in a theater. But the irony is that what you take for granted is that your eye has captured something that is totally in motion, and it's just moving along. And the fascinating thing to me about directing, which is probably it's not my favorite thing to do, but it is most all-inclusive. And really gets me, because I get so many creative outlets while I'm doing it, is that you're not only telling a story of the script, but you're telling a story of everyone in the company. Because what you see on the screen is just the tip of an iceberg. It's the reflection of a tip of an iceberg. And that's the other thing people don't realize, that when you're watching a movie, you're seeing the experience of people, 80, 240 people, whatever your company is, that is all banded together to focus their attention and the camera and the sound and the music on telling a story. And everyone identifies with the story they're telling in the crew and in the company, so they lend that energy. So when you're watching a movie, what you're really watching, like right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people in this room. 9, 10. So we have a minion. Now, so you have here, you don't have just simply an interview with me. You have an energy, a focus of energy that is coming here. And the more intricate that, if it's not just an interview, but it is a story you're telling, and you're creating a scene, and I'm about to kill you, or whatever, then you get my point. Well, I think ultimately in life, that's in your search. You're trying to find out, or trying to know, experience, what we're doing here. That's why we tell our stories. I mean, storytelling is the most sacred thing that we have, because it's the way one generation transmits its information to the next generation. All its information. It's genetic information, it's monetary information, it's historical information, it's social information, all of that. And so the telling of a story becomes a very, very important thing in terms of reaffirming our ability to be one, our ability to overcome our fear of death, our lack of control or power over our mortality. It becomes the way in which we experience each other as human beings and our place in the world. That's why we tell stories. That's the bottom line. At its heart, it is a life-affirming exercise. That always happens. If you can picture two Bedouin tribes meeting for the very first time between the Tigris and the Euphrates, they've never come, one from the east, one from the west, and they come, and when they get past the fact that they're not there to eat or kill each other, and they get past the few basic hand signals, eventually it gets to, you've got a wife? Let me tell you about my wife. Remember in Mel Brooks' 2,000-Year-Old Man, he really nailed it there. You know, and people start telling stories to each other because it helps them feel like they're connected, like they're in this together, like there's something we have together, you know. Then you dress it up with pretty girls or a lot of action or guns or whatever the hell people seem to feel they need to fulfill their needs of so many needs. At its heart, it's a religious exercise telling stories.